Teyana Taylor is the final release of Kanye's Wyoming Quest. It's been a pretty big ride for Kanye West up until this point. I mean, he's dropped some albums that a lot of people have considered albums of the year. K.T.S.E, Ghosts, Yay, Daytona, and the Nasir album kind of, although that album did not receive anywhere near the amount of acclaim as the rest of the albums. And to be honest, I think people have definitely cooled down on Yay since that got released too, so we'll have to see how things go by the end of the year. But honestly, I think out of the 5, Daytona and K.T.S.E Ghosts will, survive until the end of the year, because even though I think I might like this Teyana Taylor album the most, probably because I'm a hipster and, I just do this to myself. But anyway, the Teyana Taylor album is not gonna receive the amount of attention as the rest of them, of course, because, she wasn't a big name prior to this album anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna explain why I like this album quite a lot. Because, for one, the vocals, oh my god, the vocals on this album are lovely, are absolutely gorgeous. Teyana Taylor is a fantastic R&B singer. There are soul samples scattered through this piece of music from Kanye. I love it when he does these soul samples, man. My favourite tracks on the Yay album were the soul samples. So, I have a big bias towards Kanye when he does this sound. And Late Registration is filled with the soulfulness that I friggin' love from Kanye. So anything that sounds remotely close to that era of Kanye, I just absolutely love. But the lovely vocals paired with these samples and beats, it just melds almost perfectly. Like, I can't think of any flaws to these tracks in terms of sound. Perhaps some lyrics occasionally aren't too interesting. I mean, Teyana Taylor doesn't really throw in many lyrics that make you think about things, but I think her sort of delivery makes the tracks work well. And I think the way she sings about the men in her life is pretty relatable for any straight girl out there. And I also really like how on many of these tracks there's a focus on sex, but it's not like disgusting or like blech, like a lot of R&B can be. I mean, you've heard it plenty of times in the mainstream and even in the underground too. So, there's a lot of R&B out there that goes a little bit too over the edge when it comes to singing about the very intimate moment of sex. But I think Teyana Taylor handles it pretty well. Well, let me get to the part where it doesn't go well though. The final track. Work this pussy, work this pussy, work this pussy, work this pussy, work this pussy. I mean, that sample, oh boy, what the hell. Why repeat it so many times? Why even have it at all? But repeating it that many times is just so bad. Oh, it's grating to my ears. And the beat itself that's backing this track is a little cheap, I must admit. It doesn't sound like it was put together in a very concise kind of way. It does sound very basic, but it has a bit of a bop to it. But the work this pussy thing that goes over and over again is gross. Like, it fucking... Man, it's gross. I mean, there's a point where I think it's Ty Dolla $ign that comes in with his little feature. He's been on most of the Wyoming albums actually, and that little section, I mean, yeah, he goes a little over the top with his imagery about the sex he's talking about with the girl, but it doesn't actually sound that bad. Like, I don't think it ever comes across as being like, ugh, whereas this entire track is just a ruiner. And what makes it worse is that this is an 8-track release, and we all know that every release up until now from Kanye has been 7 tracks. And the final track on this 8-track release is the worst one. So we literally could have cut it out. Like, it could have just not been there. Like, because why is it there? Why is it 8 tracks? Why? I guess Teyana Taylor might want to separate herself from the rest of the crowd here, just to give off a sort of different approach to everyone else. But man, It just didn't need it. It didn't need it all. And I must admit, the opening track ends quite abruptly. Even though I do like the sound of it, it's pretty cool in its sound. Some really nice choppy vocals on this track and some nice sample work as well. But yeah, it just kind of just ends abruptly and just feels a bit unfinished. But that was my issue with some other tracks on this Kanye West series so far anyway. So I suppose it's not the worst thing, considering there have been worse tracks throughout this time period. But I do really want to say I love this release. Like, the sound of this is gorgeous. It just is that last track, and I think when you've got such a short release, there's no room for error. Like, there is no room for error because it can pull things down completely, and it really does because it's the last moment of the album, and it's only like 23 minutes long anyway. And considering we've had R&B EPs already this year from Raven Lenae, that's just 5 tracks and every track kills it, makes me kind of think Teyana Taylor isn't quite as on top of it as some other of her contemporaries. So basically, I can't quite say I love this. I'm going to go 7.5. I think it's a really good release. Like I said, my favourite so far out of the entire Wyoming sessions. But, you know, it could grow on me as time goes on. Maybe I'll learn to ignore this last track, but I just don't see it. It does have a shot at making my year-end list, though, because I do really like this. Again, maybe I'll just cut it to 7 and just ignore that last song and just keep it at that and see how it runs, because it would have been nearly fantastic without that. But well, let me know your thoughts. I know this is probably going to go over people's heads. People will love K.T.S.E Ghosts way more than this, I'm sure, but let me know your thoughts. Subscribe for more reviews. Yep, let me know your thoughts on this release, and yeah, have a good day. Work this pussy, 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 bye.